Today we're going to be looking at data, how to find it, how to set it, how to read it, how to change it, and how to figure out where it is, what it is, how to address it. So basically you have situations where someone triggers something and then you want to check on what they are, right? What class are they? Or do they have a lot of hit points or a little bit of hit points? Do they carrying a particular item? What is their rotation? All kinds of things that you can ask about a token, about an actor, about a tile, whatever. And you need to be able to get at this information. So here are some steps that you can follow to find where that information is being stored and how you can access it. All right. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to go to the wiki, and this is a primary place you should go to all the time. But as you can see, these are the ways that you reference the basics of how you reference information. So if you want to know something about the actor, and keep in mind that an actor and a token are not the same thing. For those who don't know, this is a token. It's what is on the map. It's what you move around and interact with. But the actual actor is sitting over here, and they are two separate things. They're linked together. This represents this, but this token is not this actor. I could bring out another token, and this token, I could make a change to it. Like, for example, I'll give it a tag. Now, this token has that tag. This token doesn't. This actor doesn't. So they are different things. So you have to recognize that they are separate entities, and they're going to have their own separate data. So we go back here. If you want to reference the actor, then all of them, as you can see, they go in double curly braces, sorry, actor dot, and then whatever it is about the actor you want, well, the actor's name, or you want the actor's class, or an item in the actor's inventory, or whatever, you go with that. The scene, and it's always the current scene that you're in, you reference that with scene dot whatever. Then there's token, there's the user, and this is not the user that owns the actor or owns the token. It is the user that is controlling the token at the moment that this is referenced. So like who physically moved the token onto the tile that is reading this information or whatever. So it has nothing to do with the owner. It's who is actively controlling it at this second. If you want to reference variables, and the thing to know about variables is you can write to variables on anything. So you can put a variable on like another tile or whatever, but you can only read short of using macros, because of course with a macro you can do anything. But this is about just what you can do with Monk's active tiles. You can read variables stored on yourself, on the tile that is doing the processing. You can write to variables on other tiles, but you cannot read from those variables. So if you're in an instance where you want to put information on another tile, but you also want to reference that information on your current tile in the future, then write a copy of that variable to yourself, as well as writing it over to the other tile. Because once it's over on that other tile, you don't have access to it. You can write to other tiles, but you can't read from them. Value is anything that comes back following certain actions. Like for example, the example they're giving here is add item, but like another one is if you open up a dialogue, the information that comes back from a dialogue, you reference that with value dot. This is ephemeral. It is temporary. So if you're going to reference the value, you want to do it immediately following the action that generated the value. And then if you want to keep that information and keep using it, store it into a variable. So now we know how to address the basic categories, but how do we find out, like if I want to look up like the actor's class or whatever, what's the term that I need to put in there? I can make guess and go actor.class, but it won't work. So how do we find out that information? And there are a couple of ways of doing it. One is a module that I find very handy. This module only works for actors, but it is very good for working with actors. And it is called, let's go over to my modules. Data Inspector, Cobalt Works Data Inspector. And what this does is if I go to an actor, I open it up, there will be this little like atomic symbol or whatever that icon is. As you can see, it says Open in Data Inspector. So you click on that and it brings up this interface and you get a searchable interface where you can go through all of the various properties that are stored and you can expand them out. So like abilities expands out, and then you got charisma and bonuses and everything. The thing is, to keep in mind is, one, you want the values that have the equal sign beside them. You don't want, like, you can't reference abilities because abilities is an object. And as you can see, like I'm hovering over there, the pop-up says it's type object. Can't reference that. But you can go abilities, .charisma, .bonuses, .check, and that gives you a value. So you want the ones with the equal sign beside them. They're the ones that have actual set values in them. They're not categories. So that's exactly how you put it together. So it would be actor.abilities.cha for charisma .bonuses.check to get this value. Now, another nice thing you can do is you can click on them and it will copy, or not click, I think it's right click. You right click on it and it will copy that to the clipboard. So if you go into your tile, select tile, and you want to reference that. So we'll go to here and I want to reference that information. So I'm going to go, actor dot, and then paste. And all you have to do is remove the @ symbol. And then we close off the curly brackets. All right. So it's very handy because it'll copy the information for you. And because it has the search ability, it's very easy to find things where you're not exactly sure what it is you're looking for. You can just start typing in terms until you find it. Right. But that only works for actors. For tiles, I'm going to show you a method that also works for actors. So if you don't want to install that module, either one of them, for actors, you would right click on the actor and you export the data. For tiles, there's a couple of extra steps involved. So you have your tile editor open up here. You click on the save as template, name it, whatever. And that saves it into your tile templates, right? Right click on it from your tile templates and export the data. All right. Once you've exported the data, you can then open it up. And I recommend using Notepad++ for this because it allows you to close sections, which makes it handy for drilling down in what it is you're looking for. But you can go through here and you can see the names. And again, you do the same thing. So if I want to know how many copper pieces they have, I would go actor.system.currency.cp. Right. But for tiles, and I have the tile open over here, this is the same thing. So you would do tile.x for its x value, tile.elevation for its elevation. And then it has the various subcategories. So I can do tile.flags.monks active tiles.active and return true, that kind of thing. So that's a handy way of finding that information. Now, unfortunately, what you can't do is export tokens. So if you're getting information about tokens, you're sort of out of luck in a lot of ways. Now, what I generally do is if I want a certain piece of information about a token, I look at, well, is that same kind of information, like its rotation, for example, is that same kind of information available for a tile, right? How is it stored in the tile? It's probably named the same thing for a token. Another thing you can do is you can open up the alter command and you can, under attribute, you can just type in rotation. Oh, there we go. There's two rotations, the rotation of the picture, the texture, and then the rotation of the tile itself, right? So that gives you the name. Now, fortunately, it's somewhat limited. And also it can only have, like, for example, if I want to look up X, it shows a whole bunch of X's here. What it doesn't show is just basic X, because it'll only show, what is this, 5? I think 5 examples, and that's as long as it'll go. So for example, like if I type in Y, now I can see Y because it doesn't have as many options. So there's enough room to fit Y in there, which confirms that, yes, there is just a X option. It just doesn't show up in the suggestions list because it'll only show you so many. So that's another way that you can just take some pokes in the dark to try and figure out the name of the variable you want to work with. Now you'll notice here, if I do like rotation, for example, I don't have to do tile.rotation or token.rotation or whatever, because when you're working in an action that is specifically addressing things, like for example, you choose this tile or triggering token or whatever, it automatically puts in the tile dot or token dot. It's assumed. So all you need is just the name of the variable you want to work with, and then you can change the value. So that's how you can find information. Now, you can run into situations where you want to find out something about something and you can't. Like, for example, there is no function for checking on the status of a light, whether the light is on or off. You can turn lights on or off with a tile. You would just tag that light, and then you would go to activate, deactivate, and you would go by tag, and you just say, like, light 1, deactivate, and that would turn that light off. And then, light 1, activate or toggle. But there's no way for you to reach out to that light from this tile and check on its status, whether it's on or off. Well, what you could do is use tags. So what you do is at the time that you change the status of the light to on or off, also assign a tag to it saying that it's on or off, and then you can check that tag. So when you're in a situation where you want to check on something, like as I said, you can write information to a variable in another tile. I can go in here and we go to set active tiles variable. And if I set it on this tile, it'll set it locally in this tile, and I can read and write to it as often as I want. But I can also set to another tile. I can target a tile, or I can another tile that I've got tagged, or a group of tiles that I have tagged, and I can write to a variable on those tiles. But once I've written to them, I can't read from them. So if I want to check on the status on that tile for whatever reason, again, I can't do that. So again, you just set a tag. And there's a handy way of working with tags. Let me show you here. When you're working with tags, you can go every term, any term, or exactly those terms. And what that means is you look here, separate multiple items with commas. This allows you to check on multiple tags, not just one tag. So you could have a bunch of lights, for example. All of them have the tag light. So they're all in the group light. Then you have another tag for each individual light. So you have a light that just has the tag 1. And I'll show you here. I'll work with this token. So close that out. Oops. With this token. So he is going to be a dummy. So he's in the group dummy. And he has the tag 1. He's dummy number 1. And he has the tag alive, right? Or whatever else. And so you can assign all of these values to them. Some of them are individual. There's only one guy, number 1, but a bunch of them could be alive. A bunch of them could be dead. They're all dummies, right? And then when I'm referencing the tags over here, if I want to like filter or want to check the status of, or want to find out how many of them there are or whatnot, then I can just go in here and I can say, okay, I want, I'm checking on a dummy. So it's in the group dummy. And that way, because I could use this same method for, I've got a bunch of lights, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I've got a bunch of dummies, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I've got a bunch of fires, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and tiles, 1, 2, 3, and 4, things like that. So this sets my category. I'm only checking on dummies, so it won't trigger on a light number 1 or tile number 1. It's only a trigger on dummy. So I want a dummy. Specifically, I want dummy number 1. And then alive. Right? And I want it to match every term. So that means it has to contain the tag dummy, the tag 1, and the tag alive. Otherwise, it won't count. And so if I do a filter based on this, like for example, a good one is check entity count. All right. And I filter based on dummy, 1, and alive every term. So I do this filter, and it's going to return how many tokens, tiles, objects of any kind, because it'll also do light sources, it'll do drawings, you can put tags and all kinds of things. So it doesn't matter what the object type is, all it matters is the tags that are on it. So this will only count things that have dummy and 1 and alive. And then you can test, is there more than 1 of those? Or more than 5 of them? Whatever do you want to test for? So like for example, for one of my puzzles, my 4 lights puzzle, it checks to see how many of the lights are turned on. So it would check for lights, and it would check for on, and it would count those up. And if all of the lights are on, that means the puzzle's been solved. Right? So I can reach out and I can check on the status of those lights, even though there is no way, at least no way that I know of. Obviously, again, you can do anything with macros. We're talking about just with Matt's tiles. You can reach out and check on the status of things and alter the status of things from any tile. So that is very, very powerful. And then you can, once you've established that information and then you act on that information, you can update the tile. So I can use the, where is it here? The alter tag, and I can search for dummy. Oh, I'm just not spelling great today. And 1 and alive, right? So if there is someone out there, and again, every term, who is dummy 1 alive, let's remove alive, right? So if dummy 1 is alive, make him no longer alive. Remove him from that category. So very handy for checking and setting the status of any object in your scene. And those are basically all the tools I use for if I want to find information, read information, change information. I mean, I'll use different actions, like the alter action for changing things. Or as you've seen in some of my other tutorials, I will just, when I'm checking on something, I will directly reference it. Like, for example, when I want to set a variable, if I want to set it to the value of another variable. So let's say, for example, I have a variable damage formula, right? Which contains the dice formula that I want. And I want to assign that to another variable or whatever, or I want to change it, right? So I've already rolled the damage. So I've stored the damage, but I want to do half the damage. There's a person's resistant or whatever. So I go, okay, well, the variable's name is damage. And again, I don't have to do the curly braces and dot, variable dot, because in a field where it's asking for the variable, all it wants is a variable name. It assumes the curly braces and the variable dot and whatnot. And then I can say, I want to take that and let's see, what do I want to do with it? I could say, When you're working with variables in the value, you have to actually spell it out because it's not expecting a variable here, but it will take one. So I could say, first off, I want to make an assignment. So equals space, and I'm going to assign it variable full damage divided by 2. Right? So I can reference a variable in the assignment of a variable like this. Or sorry, this is unchecked variable. Sorry, this is not set variable. I'm on the wrong action, but you get the message there. You can use them in places where you generally don't expect them. So it's expecting a variable here. It's not expecting a variable here, but you can still use them. They're what are known as handlebar expressions. They are explained in the wiki. What is allowed and what is not. Not every field allows handlebar expressions. So it's kind of trial and error to figure out which ones allow them, which ones don't. You can use variable names. Like here's a handy example. Let's say you have a situation where you want the tile to react differently based on who is stepping on the tile, right? So you would check for the name of the token, and you would make your landings based on that. So we're going to create a landing. Let's see here, landing, and then we're going to call it double curly brace token dot name. Right? And so when the token comes in and steps on it, you would put in a jump to landing, which is here. And you say jump to landing. Oops. Token dot name. So actually, I got this backwards. You put the variable in the jump to landing, and then the landing you actually put in the actual name. So in this case, it's training dummy. Right? And then you could have another one for Bob, and another one for Jim, and another one for, Dark Romancer, or whatever silly name someone comes up with for their character. And you have a different landing for each one. And so it will jump to the name of the token. It will pull that name, and then it will look for a landing that has that name, and it will jump to that. So you can have completely different behavior based on who entered it, or on the actor, in the event that the actor's name and the token name are different. Because you could have, like, say, for example, you had 3 fairies on the thing. They're all just fairies, so they just have the one actor, fairy, but each token has a different name on them. Jim, Bob, and Ray, right? So when the fairy Jim steps on it, you get different behavior than when the fairy Ray steps on it. Or you can do it based on the player name. Is that what it was called? Username, right? So if I'm the one controlling the token when it steps on, I get a different behavior than if it's Jim that's controlling the token when it steps on. Using just the same thing, you would just use username or actor name or whatnot to get different behaviors using that variable. So I think that pretty much covers it. How to find out what variables are called, where to get that information, how to reference those variables, and in circumstances where you can't reference a variable or whatever, you can, in place of that, use tags. And that's pretty much all the tools that I use when I'm working with puzzles and traps where I have to reference other tokens or other tiles, make changes to them, check on them, things like that. These are the tools that I use. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. Have a good one.